And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a special Eclipse Day Final Four edition of We Got Next. I'm Rickey Hampton with former Milwaukee Bucks center Paul Mokeski. Hope everybody's having a wonderful afternoon. Please send us your questions and comments about today's show. Anything that's on your mind pertaining to, I don't know, the Final Four, what you saw yesterday, the eclipse. Hey, we're down for everything. Mo, it is great to see you, my brother. And I love some of those plays you got behind you. Are any of those set up for me, man?
No, you're setting picks on all those. So those are basic plays that everybody runs: zipper, floppy, pistol, horns. Um, yeah, I just got bored in my office, and I'm a guy that likes to draw plays and learn stuff, and you know,
Are those NBA sets?
those are
Or just at
basketball.
every level?
Those are basketball sets. Anybody can run those. Those are those are the four basic sets that teams should run, and there's about 5 or 6 plays out of each set. So
I'm looking at floppy. It, what is floppy?
it's a double screen on one side, a single seat on the other, and then the shooter can come off either way, and then you hit him, and then you play out of that. That's kind of Purdue runs a version of that, where they try to post up Edie. If you see the 5 spot right there, that's Edie. So they got the guard that comes off. He comes off. They pass to him, and then they post it in the Edie.
Yeah, and he does a good job deciding when to kick that thing out to their shooters.
Yeah,
And
he
when they make
struggled.
the shots, they're tough to beat.
Yeah, he struggled last time. I thought.
He
I
did.
thought in the first half he was too sluggish. He put the ball on the floor too soon, too quickly, and they got their hand on it, and they got turnovers and steals. And I think they fixed that in the second half. That was one of the things that they asked the coach about. And he's telling them, catch it, keep the ball high, and just make your move. Don't bring the ball down and decide. Just catch it and make your move and go. And I think he did in the second half.
Yeah, and we're going to get into tonight's matchup against UConn and Purdue. And I think it's safe to say, Mo, these were the two best teams uh, in college basketball this year.
Yeah, they've been the most consistent. They've been at the top of the list all year long.
Yeah,
So but other people, my Kansas Jayhawks early, Alabama, Auburn, North Carolina, all Houston, all those teams had their hand at the top of the list, and here and there throughout the season. But Purdue and UConn have been there for the whole duration since day one, pretty much.
yeah. Hey, this is the first time ever. I think it's safe to say that the men have kind of played uh, second fiddle to the women in the NCAA tournament, and that the women capped their championships off yesterday with South Carolina knocking off Iowa. But Mo, it was a fun ride watching these ladies play, and I love what Don Staley said about Caitlin Clark after the game yesterday. Saying, hey, she took time out of her team's celebration to give Caitlin a shout out for uplifting that game, not only for college basketball, but for women's basketball overall.
Well, I'll tell you, she has 3 national championships. She was a player at the highest level, and she knows the battle that women's sports and women's basketball for sure have had over the years. And she realizes they never got this acknowledgement before. They won it before. They never got this acknowledgement until Katie Clark came along, right? And now
Right.
it's everywhere. I'm not saying that Katie Clark's the best player, She's the best shooter for sure, but and that she's going to have great success right off the bat in the WNBA because, one of the ladies that played in the NBA, Tarasi said, she's super person against 18 and 19-year-olds, but she's going to come up to the next level where we're all grown women and have been playing professional for a long time. So, she's going to have, there's going to be adjustment like there is for everybody, but the coach understood that, Caitlin Clark has had an impact on women's basketball at the collegiate level. Unlike some of the greats, Lynette Woodard from Kansas and, Cheryl Swoops and, you can name a lot of them all the way to Nancy Lieberman, but this has been where I think 14 million people watched the semis the other day. So, this is a different stratosphere and Caitlin Clark is a big part of that. And
she came around at the right time with social media.
Yeah, she's like the Steph Curry, right? Of women's collegiate basketball. She shoots from deep. I mean, she's just shooting from where Steph Curry shoots from. Has the step back and can get to the basket and is a very good passer. So, it was great sportsmanship. I thought, but in the long run, I thought what was going to happen happened. South Carolina versus Iowa. South Carolina is bigger, stronger, deeper, and just better. And I think Iowa, might have overachieved. They beat a good UConn team, barely, and they got to the finals. But I don't think, it would have taken some special stuff happening, which happened in the first quarter, by the way, when Caitlin Clark had 18 points. But then, and I told people I was sitting here watching with, I said, they're going to tie it up before halftime easy, because the better team, they're just going to settle down. And, I thought, the coach did a good job by not calling a timeout, letting her girls figure it out. And, I think Iowa got as far as they could get in this tournament.
Yeah. Hey, Mo, what's the hardest thing, your years of coaching, what's the hardest thing about the in-game decisions a coach can make in terms, like yesterday, South Carolina was down 20-9, and they just kind of played through it. When did you play through it? When did you hold? We got to kind of do something to stop this.
Well, I think 90% of coaches, especially in college, would have called a timeout or two. Because, in my opinion, I think college coaches are over controlling they call timeouts on a whim, just willy nilly. Even after they make a basket and they're on a run, so they can set up their defense. But I think it has to do with coaching. It has to do with confidence in your team. Phil Jackson did that all the time. When he was with the Bulls and when he was with the Lakers, he pretty much always had timeouts left after the game because he would let his team play through that and figure it out. He used to say, "Let's figure it out. You guys got to figure it out, right?" But as a coach, you at the same time, you have to have a lot of confidence in your team, not only in their talent. They have to have enough talent to figure it out, but also enough toughness and mentality and basketball IQ to figure it out. And let's face it, there's quite a few. Most teams aren't like that, and most coaches, don't do that, and they're more controlling. And at the same time, if it would have went 35-9, she would have been catching all kinds of grief. Why didn't you call a timeout? Why didn't you call a timeout to stop it? Now she's a genius because she didn't call a timeout. So come on.
So it's always a game-to-game kind of gut kind of.
Well, it's a team by team. What your team is. You know your team better than anybody. You've been in, practices, locker rooms, travel, games. So you know your team better than anybody. And and it's not really, it is some of their talent, but it's more their mentality. We've talked about this before. You can't coach all the players the same. Some players you got to jump on and get on them, and they'll react positively. Some players you got to be gentle with them and encouraging, because if you jump on those players, they're just going to go into a little hole and they'll just crumble. So you have to know what kind of players you have on your team, to let it ride, and then take it to the next. Let's take it to the next level, right? So if she does call a timeout, now they get in there and they're down 23-9 or whatever they were. Does she go blah blah blah, yell at them, get on them? Why aren't you doing this? Wake up, blah. Or does she go, hey ladies, we've been here before, calm down. We're gonna get in our plays and get in our system, and we're fine. So that's another thing that could happen too. There's so many levels to this, and coaches get criticized and complimented, depending on what happens. Like I said, she didn't call timeout. Her players figured it out. They're good enough to figure it out. They took over the game, but it could have flip flopped, and she could have gone down by 25. And now she's instead of the genius coach, she's the coach that didn't take control of the game.
Yeah. Hey, and our buddy Steve Schroeder's checking in. Hey guys, I'm blind. I looked at the sun. Now I can't see how bad the Bucks are. Oh,
So,
Stevie.
yeah. Hey, Steve, you pulled a Donald Trump. Don't do that, man. You can't look at the sun. You got to put those glasses on. Yeah, I know, my Bucks. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the Bucks, and we're gonna get to the game tonight. But we were talking about coaching. Mo, I was shocked when I heard this today about former Kentucky coach now, John Calipari, is going to be taking over the Arkansas basketball program.
Well, before
So
we
he's
move on,
leaving.
before we move on, I want to touch on the South Carolina game again. Before we
Okay,
move
go
on.
ahead, go. Yeah,
So,
go.
it was a good game, interesting game. But when you look, Caitlin Clark had 30 and 8, and Cardosa had 15 points and 17 rebounds, and players were playing. But here's what happened, right? Tessa Johnson, who averages 6 points a game, came off the bench and scored 19 points in the game.
Yeah.
And I think she's a freshman. So
Freshman.
that's
She's a
what, in
freshman.
these type of games, and that's why I keep saying, in the playoffs, the Stars are going to do pretty much what the Stars do, but it's the other people that are going to dictate who wins a game and who wins a series. And she came off the bench and scored 19 points. And that turned the game around right there. But that was the point I wanted to make.
Yeah, and Mo, and a couple other things about that game. That rebound advantage over them. I don't know what the final was, but they were up like 15, and the game was halfway over.
It was 51-29.
Yeah.
And South Carolina had 18 offensive rebounds. And like I said, begin this segment, South Carolina was too big, too strong, too deep, and too good. But the too big and too strong showed on the offensive glass. And you could see the Iowa ladies trying to block out, and the South Carolina girls were just moving them around, and sometimes we're just rebounding 1 and 2 times like men rebound against little kids. So that was a big advantage, which gave them, I think, 10 more shots in the long run. So that rebounding advantage is, that's Iowa. Is not very big and not very strong, and that's what South Carolina took advantage of.
That's how you go 39-0, 38-0. Hey, Mo, one more thing about Clark. What
106-3, I think.
what is it you like about her game? And I know, and she kind of plays with a flair too, with her great passing. Why do you think people have been so enamored with her? The shooting range, the creativity.
All the above, and she's very court aware. She looks around. She has vision like a Magic Johnson type. But really, kind of her play is kind of like Pistol Pete Maravich. He was skinny and lanky and could shoot from everywhere, but was a great passer. So she kind of plays like that. Her vision is very, very good. However, in the Final Four, I questioned her decision making. When LSU was or UConn was pressuring her and denying her, I think she tried to force passes and thread the needle when she didn't have to, and turn the ball over, I think 6 times. I, if I was coach, I'd say, Caitlin, if there's a decision about passing and shooting, just shoot the ball. I don't care where you are because it's got a chance of going in. And that's one thing she's going to have to clear up. But she has the whole package, and she'd get to the basket and finish too. And she doesn't look like it out there. She's listed at 6 foot tall. I think she's probably closer to 5'11", but still, she's not a 5'6", 5'7" guard. So she has that size too. But I think her vision, her court vision, and awareness is huge. I just think, she tried to be kind of too unselfish a little bit at times and turn the ball over in these games. But I think that's, you know, if you looked around and you're playing a pickup game, you wouldn't pick Steph Curry first, right? You pick someone like Charles Barkley, and you wouldn't pick Caitlin Clark first either. She looks so frail, I don't know, and then she would light you up. So I think that's part of the draw too.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, well, congratulations to both teams and Caitlin Carter. Great job by the ladies in the NCAA tournament. We'll be looking forward to next year. And the WNBA draft is coming up maybe in a week or so, and Caitlin will certainly be the number one pick there. So we'll keep our eye on that. But Mo, let's get to the news of the day. Kentucky, one of the premier college basketball programs. John Calipari parts after 16 years, headed to Arkansas, SEC rival. Arkansas has a national championship there. So, they've had quality programs in the past. But were you surprised to hear about this? And we all know Kentucky went out early in the tournament, losing to Oakland University in the second round of the tournament. And Mo, you were probably one of the few people in the country that actually knew where Oakland University was at the state of Detroit. Your thoughts about Calipari and how that on that whole situation?
Well, I think, like a lot of times in college coaching circles, dominoes have to fall, right? And when one domino falls, like someone loses their job or moves on, then everybody else starts to shift. I mean, I coached in college, and trying to get jobs, you have to think ahead about who's moving on, who's getting fired, who's going to get that job, who's getting the job that they're leaving, and there's a whole kind of thing. So it really started with their exit in the NCAAs, which they've had in the past, because John Calipari is a guy that recruits one and dones. High school players that are one and dones will be first round draft picks in the NBA. Well, if you look in the Final Four rosters and the teams that are successful in college tournament, they're all mature players. Seniors, fifth year seniors, 22, 23-year-old players. That's who gets it done in the tournament, and that's what Calipari's Kentucky teams are not made up of. They're made up of young, very talented, very kids that are growing in their game, maybe a little immature, and that's why you have these losses in the tournament. And Calipari's been getting away with it and feeling okay about it. He makes $7 million a year, whatever, and he flies around a private jet. Great job, but at some time, I think it bore on him and frustrated him. He's a recruiting coach, not really an X and O coach, and he needed to change his philosophy of getting the one and dones more to, I need to go to the transfer portal that all these other teams. Look at all the San Diego State, UConn last year. They all had transfers. They all still have transfers, and they're all in the portal. And he needs to reestablish that. But to do that, you need NIL money. It's about the money. It's about the Benjamins. So you have to have that. And in today's world, if you're even Kentucky or Kansas, and you only have two or 3 million in NIL money, you can't get the players you want to get. And that's part of the reason. Number one, Eric Musselman left Arkansas because he was feeling the pressure a little bit. He got a great job at USC, right? He's from California. I coach at USC. It's a great job. So he took that job, opened up Arkansas. But part of Calipari's deal with Arkansas is I need $5 million of NIL money a year so I can go in the transfer portal and get the players I need. And that was a
Yep.
big part of all of that.
Mo, you hit it dead on the head regarding Calipari. According to reports, his deal is expected to be north of 8 million a year for 5 years. So that's going to be 40, 45, 50 million. And the school donors, which includes John Tyson of Tyson Foods, is expected to inject millions into the NIL.
Yeah, he's not a millionaire. He's a billionaire. There's different levels, man, and he's up at the top of that, and he's committing, and that's part of the reason this whole deal. I think they have a relationship. Calipari and he have a relationship back in the day in some way. I'm not sure how, and you know, and I don't even know. I heard you read 8 million a year. I heard five, which would be a pay cut for him. But the deal was to get that 5 million a year in NIL. But either way, Calipari's made
Right.
millions and millions of dollars. He's set for life. So really, at this point in his career, it's not about how much money his contract is. It's about how much money I can have access to NIL and get the players I need, so I can get to the Final Four and win a championship again. You know.
Hey, Thomas is checking in. Thomas Conrad, how many transfers does Purdue have? And Thomas, I know that one of the starting guards is a kid who transferred in to that program, but I believe most of those guys are homegrown.
Yeah, I think Edie is there. He's been there for the whole time. I think most of them are. I think they picked up. You're right. I think they picked up a guard that
Yeah,
starts
I
for them.
believe Jones is a transfer. I'm gonna try. That's a great question, Thomas. I will look that up as the show goes on.
Well, if you look at UConn's team, there are a lot of transfers and totally different team from last year that won it all. So that's interesting.
Uh,
So here, let me ask you this. So if you're sitting there and you're an athletic director at Kentucky, which if you look at what happened, they didn't fire Calipari. If they fired him, they would own $33 million. So he left willingly, probably with a little push from the Kentucky people because they weren't too happy with him. After all the years he won a championship, it's been a long time, and there's no buyout. Arkansas doesn't have to give up anything to get him. So it's kind of a win-win situation for both those schools and Calipari. My question is to you: who gets the Kentucky job, which is one of the top 5, at least 10 jobs in the country, right?
right.
Ever. You're looking at North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky, UCLA's. There's more schools like that, but you're looking at they're in the top 10 in the whole country. Who are you going after as an athletic director now? I mean, you got a big void to fill.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question, Mo. Does any names come off the top of your head?
Well, here's the names that are out here. Scott Drew from Baylor had great success at a pretty high, but not in the Kentucky level at Baylor. Dan Hurley from UConn. I don't think he's leaving UConn. And then you look at the teams that were successful. Nate Oates from Alabama. Tommy Lloyd from Arizona. I have contacts in Kansas. In our rival, Kansas State, thought they were going to lose their coach, Jeremy Tang, because supposedly he was offered the job and turned it down. I don't know if I believe that. But here's, those would be great hires if you can get them and all that. Here's a hire that I would think out of the box. 2 people, right? This is thinking outside the box, which I do, right? I'm an outside the box thinker. How about Billy Donovan? Billy Donovan is at Chicago Bulls right now. They're struggling. He has 1 year left on his contract. And he had great success in college. I think 4 Final Fours, 2 championships,
Back to back.
14 appearances. He won back to back. He's a maybe his time in Chicago in the NBA life has said, hey, why don't we make that last change? And if Billy Donovan can get to Kentucky, man, that would be great for both organizations, I think. And here's the other outside the box. You know, this is way outside the box. How about Dawn Stanley, South Carolina? She's won 3 championships. She has a great personality. She knows basketball. She's a relationship person. Is it time finally to have a female head coach in high level Division I basketball? Maybe that's the way to go. So I would put those 2 names. If I'm athletic director right now and I lose Calipari and I want to make a big splash, Billy Donovan or Don Stanley could do that. Don Stanley's a risk. Billy Donovan's a home run.
Boy, that you know what, that's really interesting, and that is out of the box, Mo, for sure. Now, what age? 84. What's happening, brother? Calipari going to turn Arkansas into a good program? They're already a good program.
They're solid. They struggled this year. Eric Musselman brought them to the Sweet 16 or Elite 8 last year, I think. And Eric's a good coach. I've known him for years. But, you know, it's Calipari knows one and dones. If he brings on an assistant coach there that knows the transfer portal, he gets that NIL money. Yeah, he's gonna. I bet if he does the right moves right now, has that NIL money with the players that are in the transfer portal, you're looking at maybe a Final Four next year.
Yeah, but Mo, I love what you said about and how we see it every year, where these veteran college teams with 22, 23-year-old juniors and seniors, knock off these hot shot superstars that can jump out of the gym and send them packing. I always equate it, you go to the Y, and these old dudes are just running the pickup game, and these young cats are wondering, why can't we beat these guys? It's because they know what they're doing now.
Yeah, here's the other thing too. So you get in the NCAA tournament, high level. Everybody's on TV. Every ESPN's talking about you, how you're going to make a run, not make a run, and now you get into a game where you're in a team that's just as good as you, just as physical as you, just as athletic as you, and then the stuff's not going smoothly anymore. How are you going to react in that game when some other team makes a 10-0 run against you? How are you going to react? Well, if you're 22, 23 years old and been around the block, you're going to react a certain way. If you're 17, 18 years old and have everything given to you in your whole life and you're a one and done, you might act differently in that scenario, and that's what happens.
Yeah. And hey, Mo, we got these questions coming in, and we love getting your questions and comments. And we love questions like this because Mo has played against the greatest players that have ever laced on sneakers. Either played or coached against them. And here's a question kind of speaking to that. Hey, Paul, since you played at Kansas, did you ever meet Wilt and Lovett?
Yeah, I met Lovell at the 100-year anniversary at Kansas, where we had, I think, 250 former players come back, anywhere from Danny Manning to JoJo White to Clyde Lovell came back, and I met him, took a picture with him. One of the one of the first big men ever to play the game, and just a great guy. And then I had the opportunity to meet Wilt Chamberlain when I think it was my sophomore, junior year at Kansas. I grew up in California, so after school I would go home to California outside of LA for the summer. And back then, you'd find pickup games, and we knew where all the pickup games were. UCLA was Sunday morning. Cal State Fullerton was Thursday night. You knew where to go to get the best games. I'm talking about games with really high-level players. And the best games were at Pepperdine University on Tuesday night. Pepperdine University, right on the ocean, looks over the ocean, the gym. You look out the gym window, and there's the ocean. It's so phenomenal. And on Tuesday nights, they had two courts going, and all the players were Trojans and Bruins and Clippers and Lakers and all NBA and pro guys and college All Americans. And these were the games where if you won on the first court and went to the winner's court, if you lost, you're looking at another hour before you get on the court. Anyway, great games, and Wilt Chamberlain would come play in those games. He had been retired for about 10 years, so he was playing them to get in shape. So pretty much he would run and block shots and pass and have a good time, unless you pissed him off. If you pissed him off, he would block every one of your shots and dunk on you, even though he was probably about 45 years old and he didn't care. And then afterwards, he would take everybody go meet at a pizza place on the highway overlooking the ocean there, and he would buy pitchers of beer and pizza for everybody and tell stories. And I got to know him a little bit then. I was there at Kansas and Lawrence when they retired his jersey, and he appeared there for the first time in forever years. And it was a special moment at that. And damn it, he wore his letter jacket. If I tried to put on my leather jacket now, it would look like big man in a small jacket. I wouldn't even go put it on. But he was just physical phenomenon, great, one of the greatest, if not the greatest athletes ever.
Didn't he jump? He did the high jump or hurdles
He did the high jump. He did the long jump. Yeah, he won the. It was the Big Eight back then. He won the Big Eight high jump. I mean, he didn't even practice. I don't even know if he took his jacket off. And he went high jump 7 feet, whatever. I don't know. Yeah, he was a pro volleyball player, high level on the beach and indoor professionally. Just look at his numbers, man. I mean, come on, he's the GOAT. If you're talking about individual talent, there's nobody that can touch him.
Right. Well, I love when you tell the stories about the guys you run into and just the fraternity you guys have. Because I know you and Artist Gilmore, friend of the show, Hall of Famer, A-Train, just battle each other on the floor for years. He comes out to Vegas, y'all go to dinner together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's I can't. I think the count is 2,500 people have played in the NBA ever, more than 2 years or something like that, and that's a brotherhood that And unfortunately, my generation where I played, we're losing. The Daryl Dawkins and the Bob Laniers and the Jack Haleys and Caldwell Jones. We're losing a lot of our fellow players, and it's kind of you take that, you don't take that for granted. That in the summertime here in Las Vegas, during the summer league, the Retired Players Association has meetings where they talk about business opportunities, all kinds of stuff. And then we go to a game and we go to Top Golf and we hang out, where you see your old buddies and can tell a bunch of lies. And, Dr. J once told me, it's funny. He's, I don't know if he was speaking or we were just talking. He goes, you know what? The older I get, the better I was.
Well, he was damn good. So he was
for him to say that, that's something.
I'm gonna please join us next week because I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna find the picture that I have of you taking the charge on Dr. J. I mean, you just set him up beautifully, Mo. And what happened on the call?
I told you, you go, man, it looks like a perfect charge. I go, yeah, I think they call it block on because of Dr. J.
I love it, Mo. I love it.
That's just part of the deal.
Hey, let's get into the game tonight. UConn and Purdue. What I think the two, and I agree with you, most consistent teams in the country. UConn's defense has been just outstanding. Edie, 2-time player of the year, but UConn has a big fella too, and I'm looking forward to seeing them match up. How do you see this game playing out tonight.
Well, when you talk about Edie and Klingon, the 7'2" kid from UConn, they're I think Edie is 7'4" and 300 pounds. Klingon is 7'2", probably around 270. You know, he's got, but you know, Edie is a power low post guy. You know, strong around the basket. Klingon is more of the NBA levels big guy. He runs the floor. He's long. He's pretty athletic. He blocks shots. He protects the rim. He's not really a low post guy. He can score in the low post. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how they match up against each other. But they might not be matched up that much than you think. One thing that really stands out, Ricky, and that I looked at over the last few weeks, the one thing that Purdue and UConn are totally different teams. Purdue is half court, slow it down, execute their offense, swing the ball, get it down to Edie, cut, splits, old school basketball. You know, UConn is more up pace, more guys in the open court, shoot threes more willingly. But one thing that they both do better than anybody in college basketball, just watch the game. They both execute their offenses greatly. UConn, when you watch UConn play, and I was sitting here and bugged my wife Linda because I was calling it out. You can see in one possession, just watch their play. There's a pin down. There's a flare pick. There's a handoff. There's a stagger, double staggered. There's a dribble handoff to a flare. There's all these things are going on in one possession. They're moving. All of those players are moving really nicely, and they're moving the ball. And then when Purdue comes down, there's a pick and roll with Edie, and then the guard back picks them into the post. But they don't post them up right there. They swing the ball through the guard that set the back pick, swing it to the other side, and Edie seals his guy. And sometimes he stays in the lane for 10 seconds, and they never call it. And then he gets the ball, catches it under control, and then either makes a move or guys are cutting. But they're all executing their sets, their actions, more than any teams that are playing. Just when you watch UConn, they are constant motion, all these actions going on, hard to defend. When you watch Purdue, they're running specific sets to get the ball to Edie. They're running cross picks, diagonal picks like they used to run for Tim Duncan in San Antonio to get him the ball in the post, and they have a lot of misdirection. Okay, we're looking here, but Edie's posting up, but really you're going to front him and do all that and battle him. Then we're going to swing it around, and he's going to steal you, and he's going to catch it because we're going to feed him from the other side. So it's going to be an intriguing game. The team that really gets there, if Purdue can slow it down and really pound it inside and get to the free throw line like they usually do and get UConn in foul trouble, they have a good chance. If UConn keeps the pace up and going and running and, can, get maybe Edie in a lot of these actions, dribble handoffs and pick and rolls and all this, then they have an advantage. So it's going to be really interesting strategically and execution-wise what happens tonight.
Hey, were you surprised at how the semifinal games turned out, the Alabama UConn matchup, and everybody was looking forward to the North Carolina State Purdue matchup because of their big guy Burns, but he was pretty much a non-factor in that game.
Yeah, it's funny because after that game, if you watched, when Edie was going to the locker room, Shaquille O'Neal was there and shook his hand, right? There's footage of that. And then when he did, Shaq looked like a little kid, not a little kid, but a little guy next to Edie. And guess what? With Burns, they call him Baby Shaq. There's a reason for that because he's shorter. He's like 6'9", 6'9" and 7'2", or 2 and 7'4", totally different animals. And he couldn't get a shot off. He got a couple good shots off, but size does matter, people. It does matter. But in the Purdue game, you look at they really got into Edie, but the one thing that really was different was they only shot Purdue in the North Carolina State game only shot 9 free throws. Edie averages 10 free throws a game. So the play was the referees allowed them to play and get more physical, right? and there were only 14 free throws shot in the whole game for both
Yeah.
sides. So
Yeah.
referees tonight are going to dictate the way they call the game is going to dictate what happens. And letting Purdue play physical, guys knock down threes was kind of an advantage and kind of hurt North Carolina State. But they actually did something that I think that UConn might do tonight that I would probably do. So if you're going to match up Klingon, who's 7-2 against Edey, I think Edey wins that every time. So what are you going to do? Are you going to front him? Are you going to double team him because he's really good at passing out? What are you going to do? Here's what I would do, and I think North Carolina State did it a couple times. They have a big kid that's about 6'8", but he's strong, and they put him on Edey.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would put, I don't know who it is on
Middlebrooks. I keep getting his name wrong. I'm gonna look it up.
But anyway, so I would put a smaller guy in Edey that's physical and can play behind him and push him. And then when he catches the ball, I would not trap Edey. When he catches the ball, he's very strong and he can look out and he's a really good passer. But I would, when he dribbles at one time, I would come from Klingon, the big guy, and trap him. Once he puts it on the floor, I would trap him aggressively, coming with a big guy, a 7'2" guy now. So you got a stronger guy, littler, pushing him out, and then you come with a trap with a 7'2" guy. And now after he dribbles, let's see what he can do. I wouldn't trap him on the catch. I would wait till he dribbles, and then I would come hard on him. And maybe I would save that for later in the game, but that's a strategy I think that could bother Edey because he's an immovable object in here. I mean, he's done it all year. He's faced every defense, fronts, double teams, traps, and here's what I would come with Klingon, the big kid, wherever his guy is. I don't care if he's at the top of the key, at the other wing. I mean, you come every time, and we'll rotate down to your guy, and you're the guy. You're the double teamer all the time.
And it was Ben Middlebrooks, Mo, for North Carolina State, who I thought did a good job throughout the tournament. And they listed him as 6'10", 240, and he looked it. He's a big, strong kid.
Yeah.
And an older guy too. Mo.
That's what I would do, and that would impact the post up. But in the long run, UConn has to get up and down. Alabama thought they could get up and down with UConn, but they learned that they couldn't. 86-72, and that really, it's tough to run against UConn. And UConn has what? So they had Castle had 21, Klingon had 18. Alex Carabon, who's a nice 6'8" player like him, NBA level guy, had 14. Spencer had 14. Newton had 12. Johnson off the bench. They have a lot of different weapons that can attack you in the open court. And with that motion offense, man, they're setting so many screens and staggers and flares and handoffs and all this stuff that, they're very hard to guard.
Hey, going back to Thomas's question earlier, I do know Lance Jones is a transfer for Purdue, their starting guard, who's played well for them. Opposite, he's the two guard, I would assume, and I would say in their offense. Paul, a question when we were talking about DJ Burns a second ago, and he was an undersized guy. I always want to ask you this: how did a guy like Wes Unseld get away with playing center in the NBA all those years at 6'7", 6'6"?
I mean, big, wide shoulders, very smart, new positioning, and would block out. You couldn't get around them, right? I don't care how tall you are. If someone with wide shoulders and big and gets big and blocks you out, it doesn't matter if you could be Wembyamba. If you work on blocking out, you can block out. And then once he got the rebound, he had one of the quickest, most precise outlet passes. So, he took your advantage of size away from you by blocking you out and then not letting you run because you outletted it so fast. So, how did Charles Barkley at 6'6" play power forward in the NBA?
Yeah.
know,
But Wes he wasn't even a great leaper.
no,
I
no.
mean,
You know, when
I mean he could jump, but he
Bill
wasn't
Laimbeer
jumping
was a
like
very
that.
good rebounder in the NBA and can't jump worth anything. It does, you know, jumping ability is not rebounding ability at all. I mean, it gives you some advantage, but you need to have pursuit, toughness, block out ability on defense, and have a knack for finding the ball. It's not,
Who was the best
rebounding has
rebounder?
nothing to do with jumping.
Who was the best rebounder you played against? Just that skill, non-big guy.
Probably Rodman, probably, you
What
know.
what what his thing was quickness.
Yeah, and tenaciousness, right? I mean, rebounding is not about jumping. It's not about strength. It's about how much do you want the ball. No, wait, I take it back. Moses Malone, well, he was big, so. But Moses Malone, you know, Del Harris was a coach in Houston when I was there. Moses was MVP. I was his backup. And he told me one day, Coach Harris said, do you know why Moses Malone leads the league in rebounding all the time? I said, I have no idea, because he's 6'10", has small hands, not a great jumper, you know. He says because he goes after 95% of the rebounds, where most players in the NBA, no matter what position, go after about 50%. So he goes after 40% more rebounds and he gets 20 of them. And that's how he averages 12, 13 rebounds, because he goes
Mo,
after them.
to our new viewers here, Mo has some great Moses Malone stories, but I don't want to get into all of them today, Mo, because we got stuff we need to get to. But it
We need
was
a whole
one
show.
where you were trying to guard him, and I think he shot it one way and tossed it the other. You had him guarded perfectly or something, and he tossed it over his.
So as a practice, and I'm guarding him. I have my arm bar up, and I have my hand on him, and and the basket's this way, and I'm guarding him, and I got him in position, and he throws it over his right shoulder just like this, and then spins around and goes around me and gets the rebound and lays it in. He just threw it like this. That shot, he just threw it like that and hit the board. He spun around and got it. Who thinks about that, and then who does it, and then who can pull it off? But that goes with hey, Mokeski's big, strong. He's got me locked in. How do I get to score? How can I score?
Yeah,
Well, I'm gonna throw it off here because I know I'm quicker than him, and I can spin around him and get it.
yeah. He was relentless. The great Moses Malone. Absolutely here. Hey, finish your questions and comments. We got a few more minutes here on the show. Hey, Mo, who is it? Anybody you watched in this tournament that you think will be a good NBA player or any future NBA star? People keep talking about this draft being very poor this year. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think there's a standout guy, but I think there's a lot of guys that are solid players that, are going to have careers in the NBA. I don't think there's a standout guy that's going to, tear the league apart, which I don't think happens. Wemby's just come along every once in a while, but, there's a lot of players. Can't remember the kid's name from Tennessee, 6'7" forward.
Dalton Connect.
Yeah,
Dalton
I like
Connect.
his game. He can shoot it. He can shoot it when he's covered. He's got long arms. Um, you know, I like Alex Karabin, the 6'8" forward for UConn. He can shoot it. He's got a good body. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Turkoglu when he played. He's got good
Yeah,
skills. And yeah, I watched him the other night in that UConn game. I like him as an NBA pro.
yeah, absolutely. Hey, we got a couple more minutes left, Mo. Let's get into some NBA stuff, man. We're heading down the home stretch, and the biggest story, I guess, is who is going to win the West. And does it matter who finishes atop the West? Minnesota. Well, let me just get it. Minnesota and Denver are currently both 54 and 24. Uh, while Oklahoma City's a game back at 53 and 25.
Yeah, I mean, the West is the Wild Wild West. So Minnesota, Denver, and OKC are one game apart, right? There's only 4 games left. So changing a position now can happen, but it's tighter because there's only 4 games left unless you play one of the games ahead of you. But so if you're Minnesota and your likelihood, you're going to be playing. If you finish one at Minnesota, your first round is going to be against Sacramento, the Lakers, or Golden State. That's no picnic, right? And if you're Denver and you're in the second spot, you're going to be playing New Orleans. So, and if you're OKC, you're going to be playing Phoenix. And the best first round series right now and pretty much locked in is going to be the LA Clippers against the Dallas Mavericks. That's the first round matchup. So really in the West, you're looking at every team, Minnesota, Denver, OKC, Clippers, Mavericks, Phoenix, Sacramento, Lakers, Golden State, New Orleans. I don't think anybody's afraid of anybody. I think a lot of people don't want to play Denver, but man, your first round playoff series can be tough, man. I mean, you know, it's going to be interesting.
Philly's got to get Embiid back.
They have him back, yeah.
Right. Does that give them hope? Got to give them hope, but
yeah. I think with Embiid and the way Maxi's been playing, Maxi's had like a couple 50-point games, right? And and they got a good roster, and I think they were second until when Embiid went down, and then they dropped. They're at 7 now. But really, you talk about matchups, right? Milwaukee Bucks, who's struggling, really struggling for whatever reason, their first round series is going to be against Philly with Embiid or Miami. That's their first round matchup. So it's going to be tough. But yeah, I think Philly with Embiid, I don't think he's 100%, but he's 80. That moves them up. They're in the 7th spot, but that moves them ahead of Indiana, Cavs, New York, Orlando. That moves them up into 2 or 3 of teams that are going to play for the Eastern Conference Finals. So yeah, Embiid back helps them. That gives them a legitimate chance at winning the East.
Mo, what's going on with Milwaukee? When they fired Adrian Griffin, they were 33-16. They're now 47-31. So that's they've gone 14 with under Doc Rivers. They've gone 14 and that's 500. 14-14. No.
Yeah, I mean
14 and 31 minus 16 is what?
I don't know. I don't do math, but either way, they're in 2nd spot. And here's what's crazy, right? In 2nd spot in the West is tied Denver and Minnesota for first, and the next spot is the 3rd spot. OKC is 1 game out of first place. In the East, Boston is first by 15 games. 15 games.
Yeah.
So there's such a discrepancy there. But as far as Milwaukee is concerned, they were doing okay with Griff as coach, but they weren't living up to expectations. They were losing to teams they shouldn't have lost to. It didn't seem like Damian Lillard was very happy. He was kind of complaining, and just things weren't. Maybe guys weren't listening to him. They didn't believe in his system or his defensive system or whatever, and it just wasn't going well. So the people from above decided, let's make a move now, early enough in the season, that whoever we bring in, who's Doc Rivers, who has a championship, is a veteran coach. Players respect him. Let's make that move early and see if we can turn this thing around. Well, that was the idea, but that's not what happened. What happened was the team went into a funk, some injuries. Still, they don't play well together. It doesn't seem like they can beat the Boston Celtics on one night and lose to the Washington Wizards on the next night.
Yeah.
And that's not the sign of a championship team. And that's concerning. And, I saw a comment from Doc Rivers last week. It's interesting that we're struggling now, everybody here is pretty happy except me. I'm the one that's not happy. Everyone else seems to be pretty happy. And I notice I'm sitting back and I'm looking and I'm noticing things that even on the road with our support staff, we're not as professional as we should be.
Yeah.
Well, you should have seen that a long time ago and clean that up right away, even if you have to fire some people to make some noise and get it cleaned up. But seems to me that Milwaukee seems like they got talent. They have one of the deepest teams in the league. They have one of the best players in the league, and they can beat anybody on any given night, but they can also lose to anybody. So they're probably sitting back saying, well, we're just going to wait till the playoffs and turn this thing on, which is not a good thing, especially when you have the Celtics there waiting on you and you have Philly who's getting a beat back. It's not a good look for Milwaukee. And they got but what, a week, 4 games to get their act together. And then, like I said, they're going to be playing Philly or Miami. And you
Yeah.
could maybe look for an early exit from the Bucks this year, which is sad to me.
So they've been 14 and 15 on the dot.
Yeah, I mean,
Since
and
they took over.
you can have injuries and schedules are different, but one thing you can't, they lose to teams they shouldn't lose to. They lost to Washington. They lost to someone else that they shouldn't lose to. You got to win those games. And that, to me, that says there's something. If you can beat Boston's and Clippers and Denver's, you can beat those teams and you lose to these other teams. It's not about the talent you have; it's about your mentality and the psyche that's around the team, and that is a major concern. And
Yeah.
you know, everyone, holiday move. That was kind of pushed in by Giannis in the off season. Say we need to make moves for me to stay, and they did, and it hasn't turned out great. Lillard is Lillard is Lillard, but he's not Dame time anymore with Milwaukee. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah. Hey Mo, we got to get out of here, man. This has been a great out, man. We have just tons of viewers today. We appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe to our show. Go to Chilltown Hoops on YouTube. You can get this show, all our other shows. We appreciate your questions and comments. We appreciate great friends like Woodage 84 and Steve for checking in.
Spread the word, baby.
Yeah, let us know. We'll be back at our regular time next week. And Mo, who you got tonight?
I have who I've had all year long, and people think I'm crazy. I have Purdue. I think Purdue slows the game down. I think Edie is hard to guard, and the other players can step up and hit threes. But like I said, the backup player for South Carolina last night had 19 points. If Purdue could get someone to do that tonight, they got a great chance. But UConn is going to be tough to beat. I'm telling you, people, watch what they do on offense. Watch all the movement, cuts, and flares, and all this stuff. Watch it. It's beautiful. Watch it tonight. I got Purdue against what a lot of other people are saying.
Well, we got to get out of here. For Paul Mokeski, I'm Rickey Hampton. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time. Peace, everybody. Have a great week. Thank you, Mo.